pretty, Melissa. Did you just get off work?
Oh, thank you. No.
Is that one of your unique lip colors?
We're live, by the way.
Yeah. We had a birthday party. One of my very best friends, her youngest daughter turns 8 years old tomorrow. And she wanted to do something special that was different than us getting together and doing Thanksgiving. She wanted to make it a special day. So we had a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party up in Franklin. So
that's fine.
It was fun, yes. Cool. But no,
we're live, by the way.
Oh.
And we're live.
We're live. No. Fine.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Some small talk. We're into learning the personalities involved with fermenting opinions and stuff. So
yeah.
Yes, but we are fermenting opinions. You've probably heard me say that a million times now. Podcast in search of a more palatable political ferment. This is a hangout. We were going to talk about healthcare, but our guest who we're going to bring on to talk about healthcare in Sweden versus the U.S. Is not currently with us. We're hoping they join us. If they do not, we're talking about we're talking about Chuck E. Cheese, and we were before we just went live. We were talking about the Johnson Amendment and the fact that I got a letter from Senator Bob Corker with relation to the Senate tax bill that they're going to be working on. Already passed in the House, more or less. The House version already passed by I guess it was a party line vote, pretty much. It was like 227 to like 200 and something, basically down party lines. And so the big fight is going to be in the Senate as to whether or not this thing is going to be any good or not. But part of that is a repeal to the Johnson Amendment, and the Johnson Amendment allows it. And Lacey, you were asking about this right before we came on. I figured we might as well make it official and talk about it. The Johnson Amendment is basically a prohibition on nonprofit 501c3 organizations engaging in endorsing candidates or coming out, to speak out against candidates. Now, to me, it's already too limited, because they can come out on political issues, and they can nonprofit organizations, a lot of times, which we're talking about churches, charitable organizations, will sort of talk around the issue. Say they'll talk about values and then say, oh, well, so if you know that, then you're going to know which candidate you're going to want to support without telling you who to vote for. And then they'll pass out, like voter registrations right there or something like that. And it's like, we're kind of riding a fine line. But Trump earlier this year came out with an EO that sort of hamstrung the Johnson Amendment anyway, making it unenforceable by sort of limiting who can actually investigate claims of violations of the Johnson Amendment on the part of these nonprofit organizations to where the workload would be unmanageable. Basically, nothing's happening with it. It's kind of already dead in the water, but it's still a law on the books. And if we get a new president in, which will hopefully happen soon, then we can repeal that EO and we're sort of back to normal, hopefully.
I don't think if we get the vice president as the next president, I doubt very seriously he will repeal that one.
No, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah, Pence, that would be probably why the EO came out in the first place, is that demographic of voter. I'm thinking more 2020. Then we get him out of office, hopefully, and get somebody in there with a little bit of sanity. My opinion. So, but also, the Johnson Amendment is on the chopping block with regards to the Senate bill. That's, I guess, a provision in there somewhere that there's a straight repeal of that amendment. And I don't engage in any kind of official way. I don't speak for Americans United when I come on here as a podcast. I'm just myself. Well, I am also the chapter president of the Nashville/Tennessee chapter of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And as that president, I got a letter today from Bob Corker. And basically, Corker and Trump are not friends at all. And Corker, which was more than likely written by a staffer, and sorry, I know you guys heard this before we came on, basically acknowledging, what the Johnson Amendment is, what it does, and the fact that, it is on the chopping block, and that that Corker will take that into consideration with regards to his vote on the bill. I'm hoping that makes him a no vote, at least as long as that provision's in there anyway. It could be a no vote anyway, because I think he said, what if it adds even like a penny to the deficit?
Bill?
That he would say.
Sorry, I'm behind. I'm behind
The Senate, the tax plan that they're trying to get out, basically before the end of the year. It's already passed in the House by like a 20-something vote majority, I think. Is the House version, and then they need to be able to pass the Senate version, and then they'll try to some reconciled, unified version of that for the president to sign. And this is like, think about, this is the way it went down with healthcare too. That healthcare passed in the House, and then when it came to the Senate, it got stalled, and they had a very small margin of error, and they did not fall within it, so it didn't pass. So you had people like Murkowski, like McCain. I don't know, did Corker vote against the healthcare bill? I don't remember if he did or not.
No.
He didn't.
Corker votes against any establishment bullshit Republican thing.
I don't think he had to. I think he had enough no votes from elsewhere.
Yeah, there was just basically.
My Ninja Rand.
Yeah, your Ninja Rand. James is here, by the way. He's over there being a
Moving around.
yeah. He's hobbling around my house. And anyway, so we're hoping this is a good indication that Corker, you heard it here first, that Corker may be a no vote on the Senate tax bill, having something to do with the Johnson Amendment. Hopefully, he's also, I believe, been on record saying that if anything in this bill is going to add to the deficit, that he's going to be a no vote. And I'm actually okay with that logic, just right there, because debt is okay, not fantastic. Deficit is bad. We don't want to add to the deficit. This is a liberal saying this. Let heads explode.
That's frowned upon. And if you pay for your debts, it's okay.
Right. Exactly. Yes. That's the difference between debt and deficit. Debt is what you can't, or deficit is what you can't, pay back, essentially. And it's increasing the amount of unpaid debt. Anyway, so hopefully, but Lacey, did you have any questions about?
I did. I had some follow-up questions for you.
Sure.
Since I don't, in Louisiana, I don't get love mail from Corker. But, but no, so what you're saying is, I guess, with the RFA, it essentially says that, because that's what we're talking about, right? Because isn't the Johnson Amendment, is that related to the RFA or
RFRA? You mean the Religious Freedom Restoration? Yeah, RFRA. I mean, there was I think like a '90s version under Clinton of RFRA that wasn't really pernicious. And that passed it. To me, it's all redundant because we have religious freedom. We have the First Amendment is for a reason. Yeah. And of course, I guess you would have to, be aligned with my view on jurisprudence, I guess, to think, that maybe we didn't need an additional law there. But yeah, basically,
I guess is okay. So there's so if this was like, religious law for dummies, yeah, like you said, there's the First Amendment, which says free exercise and
establishment,
yeah, no establishment of religion. Then there's the RFA, that's RFRA, which says that you can claim, I guess, a valid religious reason for
exemption, that it's placing sort of an undue burden on your ability to exercise your religious freedom,
and then,
unless there's a compelling state interest to keep you from doing that, essentially. And
then there's the Johnson Amendment.
Yeah, and the Johnson Amendment, again, that has to do with nonprofit organizations specifically. It's I guess it's related but separate than RFRA. That has to do with nonprofit organizations being able to, and it's not necessarily religious or not religious, it's just nonprofit organizations, 501c3s, from being able to endorse or make statements in opposition to candidates running for office. Now, they can still politic on issues, just not candidates.
So what about, so if you're talking about, so most of this time there's going to be religious organizations, but I guess how often do we see, some types of other nonprofits? Like I'm thinking, the World War II Museum down here, I believe, is like a nonprofit.
Right. You wouldn't, I mean, they might be campaigning for, better, policy that's going to, end up with better funding for them or something like that, or better, preservation of some historical sites or something like that. But usually what most people bring up in this case is like Planned Parenthood, and they go, they kind of push it to the wires on, well, Planned Parenthood engages in politicking, and yes, they do. But they have a 501c3, which does not, politic as strongly. They're mostly just with regards to, advocating, for themselves. But they also have a 501c4, I think. Planned Parenthood.
Oh hell, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, there's
No,
different. There's sort of different tracks to it, and the 501c4, which is different than 501c3, which like all churches are 501c3. 501c4 is like basically a political action group, and they can go out and they can politic in favor for or against candidates. And a lot of people don't understand that those are actually two separate organizations. They view them as the same and say, well, Planned Parenthood is doing politicking, so why can't churches?
Well, so then what about this next question? Okay, so limiting it to churches. Let's think about consequences of what's going on at this point. So if that's going to be, EO'd out of the picture, if the Johnson Amendment is, then what is, I guess the next step is, are you going to be finding people that are preaching from the pulpit, endorsing Donald Trump from the pulpit? I mean, maybe in Southern Alabama that would happen.
If you repeal the Johnson Amendment, there is nothing stopping that from happening. There is functionally nothing stopping that from happening anyway, because like I said, the Johnson Amendment has already been hamstrung by by Trump's EO that came out this spring sometime, I think. But yeah, there would literally be nothing from stopping that from happening. It's important to remember with regards to these charitable organizations, including churches, that they are recipients of tax-free, tax-deductible donations, meaning anybody who wants to turn a church into a super PAC can do that overnight. I can set up a church tonight, and if this thing gets repealed, I can ring up my buddy George Soros, because I'm a liberal and we're all on the take, and he can pump millions upon millions of dollars into my church, so I can use that to endorse, Hillary Clinton 2020 or something like that. Like there would be literally nothing stopping that from happening, not a thing legally.
I feel like the type of voter that would be really the type of voter that would, I guess, I don't know, is this really going to be a big change, or is it not? Because is your typical voter going to be more persuaded if their, religious leader indicates that you should vote for one person over the other? I mean, do you think voters kind of already have their minds made up?
That's hard to say. I mean, but if you're filling the pews, so to speak, I think that your pastor, or the one presiding over the congregation, is going to have a really strong sway in turning that congregation's head any which way. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit easier to say, Republican versus Democrat, and a lot of that, the political affiliation is, going to already be decided. But what about within that? What about in a primary race?
Right.
You're getting the Tea Party candidate versus, the one who's more moderate, or you're going to, or all these other iterations. What about a libertarian candidate versus, your more, prototypical conservative? A lot of that's going to come down to, what if someone is giving your preacher unlimited money to push the one that you want, and what if that's what's keeping your lights on? What if that's what's keeping your doors open? I mean, it has a corrupting influence in the best of cases, which is why I think there was Pew polls done, no pun intended, and it's a largely unpopular measure, the idea of repealing the Johnson Amendment. Most preachers in America, that is, do not want to see a repeal, but there is a certain demographic, and that is, again, that's the Mike Pences of the world, essentially, the people who are of this far right, which I would call theocratic persuasion, who are very much for that they think that not being able to endorse a candidate is a violation of their freedom of speech. And that's the line they take with it. And to me, one of the things a tagline that I repeat from Americans United is, the religious right is neither. as incorrect, or really about religion, more about politics and power. And that's my take on it anyway. Anyone else got any? I can shut up for a second.
I mean, you really look at me like you want me to start talking?
You're a secular guy too, right? Secularist.
Oh, I am indeed, but I'm also really good at not shutting up and staying in the limelight.
Melissa, what's that?
Oh, was that?
That
was my cue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
Speaking of someone who is a practicing Catholic and someone that's a little bit more conservative minded than you, David, I still think that it's a bad idea to get rid of the Johnson Amendment, because I tell you what, hey, it's all fun and games when your preacher is saying something that you agree with, but if he's sitting there and starts to, endorse somebody that I don't like, then I'm going to, I'm not going to like it, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think people need to stop and think about, it's the same beliefs I had about going nuclear in the Senate. Okay, well, while you're in charge, that sounds like a great plan, but when you don't have the power, that's kind of sucking for you, isn't it? So I think that you have to be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it.
Yeah, I think the nuclear option, I think that's a good comparison to make there. That there are consequences of this that are farther reaching than I think people are willing to acknowledge in the short term. Yeah, sure. With regards to the Senate, you got Gorsuch, but guess what? Now you only need a simple majority moving forward. For all future times, what happens, when the Senate's composition is just a little bit different, and guys, that could happen. That could happen as soon as next year. There are some seats that I think are pretty flippable. But yeah, with regards to the Johnson Amendment, with regards to, you're sitting in a church pew, do you really want to go to, if you're, and I can only just ask you, Melissa, as a person of faith, do you really want to be, your congregation to be politicized to that level? Or is that why you're there? I mean, I can imagine if you're trying to have a relationship with God, that you're going to want to be told how to vote,
Exactly. Well, no, as a person of faith, I do not want any person, whether it be from the laity or from the clergy, telling me anything more than what my church doctrine is. And if you need to explain a political position, show me how it's relevant to the church doctrine and the teachings of Christ. But don't tell me who you're going to vote for and who you think I should vote for, because you know what, though? You can tell me what church doctrine is, and if I want to interpret it a certain way, then I may be wrong, but that's why God gave us free will. I can interpret it that way. But don't be sitting there telling me
God wants you to vote for Roy Moore because he's
exactly. Like I said, because, it could be, that's great if I'm already leaning towards one candidate and my priest stands up there and talks about that candidate, then I might be swayed, one way or the other. And the shoe on the other foot, he may be talking about a candidate that I have no passion for. And then I'm turned off against not only that church, but my priest, who I may have already had a great relationship with to begin with. And it just muddies the water too much for my taste.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, again, to get back to Americans United, our current leader, he's actually stepping down, but Barry Lynn is a preacher. He's a Christian, and he's been a really strong advocate for maintaining church-state separation for reasons like this, because it is putting religion and politics together does corrupt both. I'm sure there's a founder quote that I'm badly paraphrasing there, but it's. If people would stop being short-sighted, they would understand, I think, that this is bad for everybody moving forward,
Well, both parties are guilty of this, the here and now. They want the short-term solution for the here and now to get what they want for right now. But that's why I brought up the whole nuclear option. Well, you know what? That may work for you now, buddy, but you know what? When you're not in power, it's going to suck. And the same thing with this, like you're saying, short-sightedness. They're not looking at the big picture. Let's quit knee-jerk reacting to everything.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah, and that's a thing that we've I think we've felt consequences enough already, and and it goes to more than that. And it's more than just what's happening on the right. Like you'll appreciate this probably with when the Obama administration, when we had them, and there was those drone strikes, basically that the president was making the unilateral decision to engage in drone strikes on civilians, our U.S. citizens. Like I go, oh boy, I'm thinking, okay, Obama, he's not a bad guy, he's probably going to use good judgment. What happens when we get somebody else in power? Is this something we really want, to go?
Sorry, I was going to say,
I just laid that up for you. All right.
I get. I get that. I can't remember my man's name. The real issue is we killed his son too. Who's also an American citizen, but his son was like 12 or 15 or something like that.
Geez.
But they were in Yemen. They were at a Al-Qaeda terrorist training camp. They were training terrorists. But they were American citizens, and they were ordered, basically, a hit put out on them that said, oh, that's our target, kill them. No due process, nothing involved, just kill them. And they did so very effectively. They killed dozens of children. They killed all kinds of people who were at this camp, yada, yada, yada. But we killed 2 American citizens with no due process. And, last time I read through the Constitution, and nowhere when I was in law school studying the Constitution did I hear anything about, well, there's an exception if they're a terrorist or an enemy combatant or even an open war against us.
I thought, no, this is embarrassing because I went to the same law school, but I thought that there was sort of an exception for due process, that if you're an enemy combatant, you're not entitled to due process. Because I thought the definition of enemy combatant is they're not a citizen. But I could be completely wrong.
Possibly.
But were those individuals declared as enemy combatants?
Well, that's what Obama said, but they didn't. They didn't openly declare themselves enemy combatants. They didn't defect. They didn't throw away their citizenship, even verbally. They were American citizens.
Yeah, well, if they're a citizen, then they should have had due process, no doubt.
But we've created just a de facto situation where we think that's completely fine, where we can just, oh well, they're with terrorists, so they're dead. I understand that's compelling, and I get that, but at the same time, I kind of wonder, like, what the fuck, guys? There's a Constitution for a reason, are we supposed to kind of follow the base rules first? And branch out.
I think it's bad, and it sets a bad precedent because what happens when somebody wants to you can already say this is a pretty bad violation of the Constitution, pretty bad abuse.
I mean, I could also
and even if you could defend it on Obama was using good judgment, even if that was the case, and I know that's not your position, and I'm critical of him too.
What actually?
I'm not trying. It's not. I'm saying it's not the point. The point is that we've set this up because we think it's okay in the short term. In the long term, this is really dangerous stuff, and that's sort of the theme of dangerous, irresponsible actions in favor of short-term political
look
gain.
at the Japanese internment camps in Korematsu.
Yeah,
that's still standing law, and it's still fine. It survived strict scrutiny. Yeah. I mean, that's insane. We are actually okay with taking an ethnicity that has really nothing to really do with the country we're at war with, but just because you can trace their ancestorship back to that country, we can put them in concentration camps, and that's okay, America. And that's still that's still completely accepted law.
And it's completely appalling. Yeah.
How long until the Trump administration decides that people on his travel ban list, they're that they also fall into the concentration camp end too? Korematsu supports it.
Yeah, I got nothing there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing stopping
that.
That's
my concern.
That's
so I think that goes
dangerous.
right to your point of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that
well, regarding the travel ban, I'm just thankful that Turkey wasn't on that list, or I'd still be over there right now.
Wow.
Yeah, good.
Well, of course, Turkey wasn't on that list. That's who Michael Flynn was quoting to his Florida, right? Like, duh.
There's money to be made over there.
That's part of the scandal is Turkey gets a lot of pro-American treatment because Michael Flynn was paid millions of dollars to try to kidnap some of these people.
Ridiculous.
Can we talk about? Can we talk about what's going on with the whole? I know we talked about more last week, or y'all talked about them last week, and I'm not trying to get too off tangent, but can we talk for a second about the Trump response that we just found out about this week?
involving Mr. Moore, Judge Moore, I suppose.
Judge Moore, that's correct.
I don't want to call
Judge
him that.
Moore. He said, I believe his response was, he didn't. Someone was asked if he's endorsing him or what his position is, and he says, "Well, I can tell you, we don't need a Democrat in that position in the Senate."
That, and he also said that, well, I can tell you that Mr. Moore says he didn't do it. And there's already been people on the inside that are, calling for Moore to step down. That are Republican.
McConnell, Paul Ryan, the main heavy hitters in the establishment realm.
Kelly, even Kelly, what's her face did.
Who?
Kellyanne Conway, you're talking about?
No, Kellyanne Conway specifically went on a big tirade about you need to vote for Moore, and now.
Are you talking about Kelly Ayotte?
No, I'm talking about Kellyanne Conway. He's right.
She went on a big. She's already been accused of an ethical violation for doing that for the Hatch Act, actually, because she openly campaigned for him.
Whoops.
But well, what are you gonna do? I would say I liked the Washington Post's response. Of course, people are going to lambast me for being a liberal now because, again, the Washington Post response to Trump was they published in-depth details of all 13 women who have accused him of sexual harassment, or sexual assault. Sorry, sexual assault, not harassment. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of sexual harassment claims, but the actual assaults where he put his hands on a woman against their will, there are 13 of them. They published all of the details, and they also published all the corroborating stories together and turned it into like a timeline where you can just see.
Yeah, we were talking about that, I think, last week at the Hangout. We were hoping somebody did that, and I guess WAPO did it.
They did.
The thing is, if you get banned from the mall in the 70s in Alabama for creeping on teenage girls, you might be a creep. Just saying.
The correct term is
someone that can't be trusted to hold an elected office.
Oh, and I got into a debate about somebody with that.
Well,
that's going to be a future podcast sometime next month when I'm in Virginia. I'm actually going to meet a guy who wants to argue about that. But I won't bag on him because I'm gonna have in-person conversation with that. So that should be interesting and challenging. But yeah, I think whether or not this at this point can be. I think there's something to be said about the court of public opinion when you have, this much information and this many testimonies. Does it become more reasonable to reject that on trying to live inside the event horizon of induction, or do we say is it more reasonable to conclude, yeah, this guy did this, he assaulted these girls, and including a 14-year-old girl, and he's a complete creep, and Republicans in Alabama want to, by and large, endorse him anyway because they need to maintain control of the Senate. And that's what this really comes down to. Anybody?
No, I think that I'm sorry, Lacey, go ahead.
Well, I'll be quick. My only thoughts are, I think I'm just kind of waiting for him to, I don't see why he would keep going forward right now because he's just going to get ousted when he hits the Senate anyway. But, with Trump's situation, my thought on that is I'm kind of liking the momentum, this whole, women coming forward and speaking about times that they have been victims of sexual assault. Like, I really like the momentum that has developed in that. And I say that with a caveat of, I certainly understand that there are going to be, sadly, instances where women are probably, if they haven't already, come forward and they might say things that aren't true just to be, vindictive. But I think that I acknowledge that there are people that are fearful of that. But I think that the overwhelming majority of these claims have value and merit. And I think that, it takes a lot of bravery for the women to come forward. And I'm so proud of them for doing that. And I hope that what this does really is kind of set the stage for when Trump does roll out of the presidency so that he's going to have to answer to some of these ladies.
That is a great thing to look forward to. That's a great point. And, and the hatchet has fallen on both sides. We've got, Al Franken, I heard where there was a second accuser came out against him, I think today or yesterday. And it's really disheartening because I like Franken a lot, but you can't say, well, because he's my guy, I want to give him a pass. If he did dirtbag shit, that has to be brought out, and I'm glad that he basically called for, an ethics investigation on himself. I think that's a responsible thing to do. I don't think that it means we should forgive him, any more than Louis C.K.
Can we discuss the strategic position behind asking for the investigation into himself?
Sure. Do you think
What?
you think there's some maneuvering involved in that?
Yeah, he knew it was bullshit. That's why he wants the investigation. And now, as you let people dig into it, they pull out all these other photos to discredit her.
I saw
showing
that
she was basically doing like the raging hormonal thing herself and like playing these sexual games, blah, 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 blah. Over on all aspects. He knew that shit was going to come out. That's why he did that. He didn't expect the woman from the Minnesota State Fair in 2010 to come out. But
yeah, because he's already a senator.
But as far as all of the stuff that's coming out from the left now, where they're digging deep and pulling up photos of her grabbing people's asses on the USO show, photos of her making out with him at multiple performances on stage, like he knew that was going to come out. That's exactly why he said investigate. I think we should listen to what she has to say, and I want to watch her publicly roast herself and hoist herself on her own petard. Al Franken's not an idiot.
No, Al Franken is not an idiot. Rush Limbaugh is a big fat idiot,
Well,
but
yeah,
not Al Franken. That was the title of his book, by the way.
It was Lying Liars and the Lies that, or Lying Liars. And
he also did Rush Limbaugh's a big fat idiot. But yeah, anyway, he wrote a book called that. Yeah, no, he's a funny guy. I like him. I like his politics.
He's a fucking SNL comedian.
Yeah,
but here's the thing: into a great senator.
Even if I can't remember the lady's name. Even if she acted lewdly with other people, even if they acted, sexually towards each other in a way that was consensual, 99 times out of 100, if she really didn't consent even one time, it's not forgiven by this other behavior.
How about the fact that it's come out now also that she has communicated with Sean Hannity and who was the other person? I believe part of the campaign or the White House before coming out on what she should say and if she should do it.
Did she talk to Hannity first?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand she is like a Republican.
Well, she is, I guess. Type. But I mean, like, not really. Like, but I mean, these are accusations that are coming out, and this is why Franken wants the investigation because
you think he'll be?
He knows that he knows
exonerated.
That he screwed up, but it was done. Yes, he'll be exonerated. He's already been exonerated in the court of public opinion.
I don't know. I'm not sold.
Well, I guess you haven't been keeping up, but yeah, there's been a lot of stuff coming out, and it's going to turn right into the same thing that we all thought would happen. Of this Me Too movement really coming off the rails and too many people making accusations.
That someone's going to muddy the water.
Let me ask y'all this, because I had this conversation, not really a conversation, but I'd made a post the other day, and it was really only intended to be a joke on the Fermenting Opinions page, and it was just a joke about, it would be nice if women could come and be, fill all these spots from the men that are getting ousted for their sexual harassment shenanigans. And that led to discussions amongst members that, really, I think, kind of went the wrong way because it was really just kind of intended to be a joke. But, but in reading everything that everyone said, one of the things came up about, really, I said this, I don't see that many women predators. I mean, the only time that I can think of that I've heard about it is whenever you have these teachers that prey on their kids, their younger students that are in this position of, I guess, non-authority vis-a-vis the teacher. And so I guess my thoughts on that are, do you think that this is something that men are like have more of a predilection towards, or is it something that it's really just a matter of power? Like, I mean, and is it a function that we see more men getting in trouble simply because, there are more men in positions of power?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. It's hard to parse out exactly what's motivating. I think part of it is cultural. That it's and a guy who can get a woman that he wants because he can take them. Essentially, I think that is ego stroking culturally.
Well, I mean, rich. They'll give you whatever you want. You can just walk up to them and grab them by the.
Right. Yeah. When you're a star, you can get away with it. It's a symbol of status that you can have whatever you want, and maybe you don't even have to ask because it's assumed that it's okay. But yeah, I think it's mostly any sort of behavior like this. I think it really comes down to power, rather than really than attraction. Not that attraction isn't present, but it comes down to power. And I don't know if and I can't speak really to how females view that, as to why they don't engage in that behavior the same way. But I would think culturally, I don't think there is that same approach to power and authority on the part of women, and that's just me.
But I think it goes. I think it goes a little bit beyond just power and authority, though. I think a lot of it also has to do with ego and self-esteem.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely power and control in there, but I think it's also ego and self-esteem. You know, it's definitely. I don't know. I just have to throw that in there. That's my take on it.
You know,
Sure.
You know, I don't know what it is either, but on the flip side, you know, and I hate to even say this. I know I said it earlier because I'm a huge feminist, and I feel like this is not something I should ever say. But, you know, I look back and it's like, there's been plenty of instances where, you know, something could be taken the wrong way, and then, like, say, you know, something happens, like the Al Franken situation with this woman, where she says that he kissed her the wrong way, and I'm not discrediting her at all. I'm sure that in her mind, let's just pretend she's completely right, but let's change the facts a little bit and pretend that she had a crush on Al Franken, and she was kind of like, if you will, you know, a woman scorned, or there was something that, you know, happens that subsequently you can come back and then say, like, you know, oh, well, he, you know, groped me the wrong way. And I hope that we don't hear a lot about stories like that, but I am concerned that they're going to happen. And I just hope that when they do, that people don't take them and use those as justification to silence all the women that are speaking the truth.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's important with regards to Franken in this one, it's terrible, I can't remember her name.
Leanne Tweeden.
Leanne Tweeden, thank you so much.
Yep.
Leanne Tweeden, that she said she wasn't asking for him to step down or resign or be taken out.
Accepted his first
and
apology.
She accepted his apology. And I think that's something to be taken into consideration too. She said she wanted, you know, just for that to be out there, you know, which I don't know, lends to credibility, I guess, if she's not trying to get him taken out for it, or at least is not making those noises. And, you know, if, like you say, ethics investigation is not likely going to result in his termination, which historically that doesn't happen very often.
There's only a recommendation that comes out of that. But either way, it's not going to matter. I think he wanted it to clear his name. But I also don't want to come out here sounding like I'm not taking her seriously or anything like that. No. I'm just saying that since he's asked for that and people have dug into it, it's kind of shown a little bit more of like this, I guess, looser sexual harassment style behavior during that USO tour specifically, you know, and she was engaging in that lifestyle and that fun little stuff too, and whatever. That doesn't mean that if she felt uncomfortable that she's wrong at all. I mean, if she didn't want to kiss the man and he forced it, that's not okay. Yeah. You know,
right.
If she's asleep, he's like making little play grabs at her boobs. That's not okay. I mean, the photograph clearly shows he didn't touch her.
I mean,
he just posed for a picture. It was stupid. It was stupid.
Yeah.
And that's not acceptable. I mean, like, that is still sexual harassment. Clearly, there's a photograph of it, and it's making its rounds.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I'm afraid to. I mean, honestly, like, it makes me, even as a woman, though, like, I'll say things to guys in my office that are completely innocuous, like, oh, yeah, I like that shirt, or, you know, nice jacket, or something like that, you know, and it's like, it's not even intended. It's the same thing as if I see a girl in my office and I'm like, oh, you know, I love that dress, or where'd you get that? You know, with the guy, obviously I'm not trying to go buy the jacket, but it's like, you know, oh, that looks good. It's not even in any way flirtatious.
There's, I mean, part of it is the fact that some people read into something no matter what you say, and the other thing is, like, there's a fine line between saying, hey, you know, you look, you know, like you. That's a nice shirt, or, you know, you look hot in that shirt. You know, you've done those are two different statements.
I was going to say is that if you look at sexual harassment cases that we have publicly and what's actionable versus what's not actionable, you have a clear kind of defining line. There's a huge difference between saying, you know, Maggie, you really look good in that dress, versus Maggie, your tits look good in that dress. Yeah. That's a problem. Statement B is a problem. You know, like, now it's become sexualized. Or even like you were making an example of like, Maggie, you look good in that dress, or Maggie, you look really hot in that dress. You know, or that dress makes your ass look good, or that dress makes you look sexy.
Yeah,
you know, be careful with words that have a sexual connotation.
Yeah.
I mean,
and usually, even if that happens, first off, if you're an employee or whatever in that situation, if you address a supervisor, and they will address the employee, it stops there, right? Or else there can be consequences, right?
Yeah,
you know, and I know it gets more complicated than that. I do understand
also, you have
that.
to understand that no one in HR is your friend, and reporting anything to HR is pretty much going to be a 50-50 shot of either they're going to be on your side or they're going to treat you like shit and you may get fired over it even though you're the victim. Reporting things to HR is deadly. I mean, HR is supposed to be this realm of people who are supposed to take care of you, and half the time they fuck you.
I take offense to that. As
Go ahead,
I work in human resources, James, I'm going to kick your ass the next time I see you.
Okay, but I mean, seriously,
I'll hold him for you. I'll
this
get a couple of shots.
Do you work in a HR firm, like, or it, I guess it's
It depends on I think it depends on the culture.
I think it really does.
The organization
it depends on the
that you're working
culture
at.
a lot. Like HR is.
I don't know. You must have worked for some shitty companies.
HR is
all I can tell you.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying.
Because I can't. Yeah, and all the human resources years that I've put into my career, I've never seen the victim get the shaft. I've never. But can I buttress something I think David, you were addressing earlier? I think it was you, David, and I wanted to, before we got too far off on a tangent, with regard to the Leanne Tweeden, and did she act lasciviously on stage with that singer and her behavior negating her claim of harassment? I want to say this. It's that to me, that kind of, I hate that, because it's almost like shaming the victim of rape because, well, she was dressed provocatively, so she's only got herself to blame.
She was asking for it, right? That kind of thing.
So that's where
it's complete horseshit.
So I think we have to be careful with regard to.
I wasn't accusing.
I know. That's what I was trying to say earlier too. I think that's a good point, Melissa. That's what I was trying to get at too. Is just because this evidence is coming out that shows that she's being flirtatious too, doesn't mean that she invited Al Franken to join in that behavior with her.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the question is, then I feel bad for the guitarist who's sitting there on stage who looks really uncomfortable in that picture. She's smacking his ass.
Yeah. You don't think he wasn't really into it either.
Guys, I think that we live in a culture where you would, not all, but more guys would be okay with having a woman slap them on the ass. I hate to say that.
That's not even close to true. That's
is
just
it not really? I don't know, but it's.
My husband loves it.
Well, sure.
Well, maybe when you do it, but here's the thing, though. Like,
but if he's in a bar with you, and some really beautiful woman walks up and smacks his ass, you think he's going to be really comfortable with that?
I would be more pissed off than he would.
Exactly, and a guy would know that if somebody did something like that to me or tried to flirt with me, like in front of my girlfriend, like. That's such a problem. Like that's a huge problem. Like
I think it's a power dynamic consideration too. Though is that what I think, Lacey, what you were saying there was that, we look at rape and sexual harassment, things like this, from a power dynamic of men are more physically strong than women, and we have this consideration there for that. That doesn't make it okay to sexually harass men,
right?
Like. But it
is less.
It's funny.
It is less socially acceptable for a guy to speak out about it, though, because a woman just slapped your butt. You're not supposed to have a problem with that because you're a dude and you're just, you're supposed to be down with that at all time. What if you're not? What if you are truly uncomfortable by that?
I mean, I
know you told us about that from a while ago.
I spoke out about this before. Like, I have been sexually harassed.
Also,
by women
not
in power.
okay.
It's really not fun. Like,
you don't see it as often. I'm not trying to. It's not. Again, this is asymmetrical in terms of violations, but men particularly, I think are somewhat
less
chilled
less susceptible to it. I suppose, but
also much less likely to speak out.
I think you're right. They're less likely to speak out, and I guess maybe what I'm hearing from you guys, which is interesting, is I feel like they're less likely to speak out because to them it's just not as big of a deal, or it's just something that, or they don't care. And
I think to some degree we're less physically threatened by it. I mean, I'm a lot bigger than most women. If I walk up to a small woman and smack her on the ass, I'm physically intimidating to her. Yeah. If she does the same thing to me, I'm going to turn around and I don't like it. I'm going to be like, bitch, try that again. And I'm going to pop you in your face.
She can't stop him from doing that if he wants to, right? Is what it comes down to.
Exactly.
Versus if it's vice versa. If I really need to stop a woman, 99.99% of all women, if I need to stop a woman from doing that, I can do that. Like, women don't have that option.
Exactly. I think that's kind of what we're looking at in a cultural sense like that. I think that's what you were getting at too, Lacey.
Yeah, it's
It's less intimidating.
There's a physical power dynamic there as well. Sure.
I'm sorry, guys. Whenever I come over, I'll stop slapping your asses.
Good to know.
I'll stop it. I'm sorry. I didn't know y'all felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. I mean, you know, there's this one place I go get lunch in this in this building. We have like a food court, and it sucks because it's like my favorite place to go get lunch, and not for what I'm about to tell you. They really do make a great Philly po' boy, but the thing is, like, the guy that checks you out, like, every time I go, like, he's like, oh, hello, good to see you again. You're so beautiful, like, talking to me and stuff. And I think that's sweet, but sometimes I just don't want to hear it. And, like, when I'm going to get lunch, then I'm, like, moving down the line. And as the guy's making my sandwich, he's like, you know, oh, he's like, what's going on? Good looking. And it's like, they say that, I'm sure, to other women, too. But, like, every time. And then the guy at the end, it's like, boxing it all up, does the same thing. And it's like, I get hit on literally, like, 3 times within, like, a 7-foot like line, and I'm surrounded by people like in the building that I work with, and they do it in a way too that like they'll lean in sometimes and say it up close, so it's like, you know, it's not a proclamation to everybody, but it's still uncomfortable to me, and it's like, oh, nice, you know, thank you very much, have a great weekend, but like, you know,
you shouldn't have to put up with that. It's a perfect world, but like, how, you know, do you engage on that? Like,
I just take it. I just am like
at the sandwich shop, being like, could you please not comment on my appearance? I just want a sandwich. Like,
yeah, you know, and it's.
And then you've created a problem, right?
But yeah, but even then,
yes.
If we're gonna use cultural excuses there, don't we live in a culture where women are pursued, and shouldn't men be pursuing them constantly? I mean, like, isn't that the cultural way we do things? If men can be,
that might be the status quo, but
that again, but I think that's what we were talking about before, is the status quo of it's okay for a woman to come on to men in an inappropriate way.
I agree with you, James. I think that there's a way to do it that's not as like a catcally, you know?
Yeah.
You can, if you're. I mean, these guys are at their job. They are working, you know, doing this. So I don't know. I'm just saying, it's very subtle. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's very, very subtle sometimes.
And I apologize. I was playing devil's advocate there, Lace. I really don't think that they should be doing anything like that. That's horrible. But I was just playing devil's advocate on the culture. Yeah, I mean, because no, that's gross, and you should not be subjected to that. Not once when you're ordering food, but all 3 stations at which you're buying it. Like,
that's pretty horrible.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's just, you know, when I'm the one in line, it just happens to be like, oh, like, you know, oh, that's the you know, that's the one we're going to do this to in line right now. And
I don't know how much you're into those sandwiches, but maybe as a social experiment, you can come back to us next time and be like, you know, hey, I went to that shop and they said it. I told them I don't appreciate being, you know, having my appearance commented on. And just serve me the fucking sandwich and see what happens. Maybe nicer than I'm thinking.
And he'll, like, when he's giving it to me, he's like, you're so skinny. And which, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's nice. Thank you. That's nice. But, like, you know, just stop.
Yeah. Also, not everyone wants to be skinny. Some people are skinny and have zero desire to be so. And that really.
I don't think. I mean, the fact that we're okay with comments that are not always okay, and we just let it go because we don't want to make waves. You know, maybe this is a point in time where you know, women are coming out against, you know, all kinds of behavior. Maybe it's a point in time that we can start. You know, we can reevaluate whether or not we should continue to allow that. And you know, there are, obviously what I said was a little bit bombastic. That maybe there are more polite ways to navigate this and still, you know, create change with regards to that kind of behavior. Right. You know, is it awkward, you know, say to ask, you know, if you don't know, it's okay to, you know, if you're on a date to touch your date or to kiss or whatever, you know, and you feel like it's some kind of grand failure. If you ask permission, right, that seems like some lame cop out thing, right? But why is that? You know, why is it so hard to just seek consent before you engage in that kind of way?
The situation is more intimate, and you're supposed to, if you're good at, you know, be able to pick up somewhat on the vibes of the other person. And, you know, I feel like in the dating space, it's a little bit of a different playing field. I mean, you still, have to be respectful to the other person, but it's not as much as, you know.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm just spitballing with some of that. But, maybe
I was going to say, I think the best rule of thumb there is to not be super aggressive in what you're doing, unless that's what you've contracted for. Essentially, I mean, if you have some Tinder date where you've been messaging back and forth, and it's clear that you guys are talking to have sex, like, well, that's that's totally different.
I think, but consent has already been rendered. Right?
If you're actually going,
no, it hasn't though. Did y'all hear that thing? What was the thing done by like Britain people where they were like talking about sexual harassment and like tea or pie or something?
Yes, it was tea. It was
tea, and it's like if they were basically sex is tea, or sex is tea, and it's like anytime you want to have tea with a lady, you have to get her permission. She has to consent to it. So if she says she doesn't want any tea, you can't have tea with her. If you stop having tea and she says, I don't want to have tea anymore, you have to stop having tea.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that too.
That's a really good analogy.
I think I guess the point is with the dating end especially is that, don't be super aggressive. Like, you should be able to see some signs of physical intimacy.
Sure.
I mean, if
if there's ever any question, it shouldn't be a some kind of colossal failure.
Really, I think
to seek consent.
I think
that's all I'm saying.
I was going to say, but not even just that, but I think that everyone should feel comfortable with the idea of revoking consent. Like, not even if you've sought it or not, but if, someone's going for a kiss and you're just like, no. Well, that should be the end of the conversation.
Yeah. The other thing, the other thought, and I have to get going. I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. That if you can't talk about what you want to do, maybe you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part with regards to just consent in general, and and everything else that your mind can wander to from there. But anything else you guys want to do in closing? Because I got to get out of town, so I'm having to close it up early. Roy Moore's a scumbag. Let's not repeal the Johnson Amendment. I hope Corker was sincere in his letter to me. And that they'll either at least pull it out of the Senate bill or he'll vote no. Anything else?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Let's all say one thing we're thankful for.
What are you thankful for, James?
God, that's a hard question.
Don't say bourbon. That's too easy.
No, that's. I'm thankful that we can get together and have these conversations still over the internet without having to pay extra bandwidth because we want to say something political.
Oh, there you go. You're thankful for net neutrality.
For now.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful for people who are willing to engage in the conversation, for people who are willing to come from both sides, and that is also a very special thanks to Melissa for being a regular and a true blue diehard with regards to. So we appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And all you guys. I really enjoy doing this, and I hope we just continue to keep growing and doing it. Lace, you're up.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know what to say after that.
You invited it.
But, I'm thankful for the lessons I've learned since this past election, and they've been a lot. And I'm going to focus on the positive and say I've learned that I'm thankful for learning that I can get to know and appreciate people that have completely different views than me, and be able to sort of see the way people and understand the way people think, and still respect and appreciate them. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm also thankful for Rodan & Field's lash boost because it's damn good. My eyelash.
For what now?
I don't know.
Rodan & Field's lash boost. Don't ask. It's just a girly thing. It's a shame.
Okay. Sure. Cool. Do it. Right. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess that is it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm David Biden.
I'm James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions. Till next time.
Peace out, guys.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.